Imogen, you're a writer and an actress.
I am.
And you're part of the Paradisefold community.
I am.
And we happened across each other in one of the most serendipitous of ways. And I'm so happy to have you here in my tiny living room.
It's a beautiful living room. It's not about the size.
No. Sometimes it's about anyway. I'm delighted to have you here in my lovely tiny little living room to talk about you and the books that you've been writing and the screenplays and the acting. So what would you say you are first? Are you an actress or a writer?
Well, I mean, I'm probably an actor first because that's what I do most of the time. That's what I'm trained to do. But the writing has always been bubbling along underneath, and it's a really essential part of my life. So I'm being on the fence, aren't I? I'm saying I'm an actor, but I'm also a writer, and I don't want to lose either of those.
But if you had to pick one.
Oh, God.
You get one word on the gravestone.
Oh, no. All right. I think it would be writer.
Writer.
Even though I've really dedicated all of my time to acting, but the writing is just a whole different league of artistry, and I love it. Keeps me sane, vaguely.
What do you write?
So I write screenplays. I've been writing screenplays for years, so film scripts. But I also write satirical poetry. I was a burlesque performer for several years, and I did the baffling combination of satirical comic poetry and striptease.
Oh, wow.
So I guess that was my first time of putting my writing out in the world.
That's pretty cool.
Very feminist-based comedy striptease. So yeah, performance poetry, screenplays, and then I was commissioned by Audible to write a novel a couple of years ago, which was kind of inspired by the burlesque. So I've written a novel as well, but there's a lot of words in the novel. Mm-hmm. It's kind of too many words. Makes my head buzz. I like screenplays because there's a lot of white page and it doesn't confuse me too much. So yeah, loads of stuff.
It's funny you should mention that, and that's a bit of an aside, but I run with a friend some writers' retreat. And one person who was there had written a short. She did, I suppose, would it be like a short movie?
Yeah, short film.
Short film. And she was reading, she made us all read the screenplay one evening. And there was a producer there who was sitting and, giving feedback. Yeah. And it was just like, less stage direction, fewer words.
Less words.
Less.
Always less words. And I love that. I think I love that because, as you can probably already tell, it can waffle.
Yeah.
So it's a really wonderful discipline to just kind of reduce and reduce and reduce. And in fact, when my novel first went to its editor, I think it was maybe the only time this editor ever came back and said, can we have some more? Can you actually just write some more words? Because I was just trying to condense it down after all these years of writing screenplays to the least words I could possibly get out. But she said, no, more world building, give me more.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we met, when we started chatting over email, we were both at different places in our career, and I was at the time about to launch with Boost. We were going through the conversations, and you were probably one of the first people to find out that we were having these conversations. And you also shared that you were on the cusp of signing your first script for a movie.
Yes. And bizarrely, since then, I've also had a second film script picked up. So now, after the first one has been with my incredible producer for the best part of 10 years, trying to find all the right funding and get everything lined up, and these things take so long. So it was strange that we found each other at that moment when both of us were like, oh God, this is going up a level. Yeah. This is getting serious.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about serious.
I know, it's a bit scary.
It is so scary. It is terrifying. It's a lot of fun, but it's terrifying. And I think I certainly do it because I think I want to go on the ride. Mm-hmm. I want to see where this is going to go if I enjoy that. But tell me about you. 10 years. So you're writing and you're acting, and 10 years go by. you get signed. I suppose the anticipation when someone picks up your script and they want to do something with it, that must have been so exciting. But then the hiatus.
Oh, such a hiatus. And there have been so many aspects to this. You know, the timing wasn't right for the first couple of years. It's a feminist horror comedy, and everyone who was looking at the script was like, I don't really understand. And then literally #MeToo. And suddenly people were like, oh, a feminist horror comedy. I'm really interested. But even after that, trying to get financing, I mean, I don't think people realise just how much work goes into getting a film off the ground. It is insane. So now to potentially have 2 happening, I was like, oh God, if just one of these can work, I will die happily and have writer on my tombstone. I think conveniently, around about the time the script was first picked up, I adopted my son. And so to be honest, I just went, right, I'll leave that over there. I'll be happy if something happens, but I have a lot going on here right now. And it's been about 7 years of just being in the mire. It's really hard to explain to people what it is to raise a traumatized child. So he has special needs from trauma and developmental delay from his early life experiences. And yeah, those 7 years, I mean, I was working through it and working constantly as an actor in audio, but it was just like swimming through mud for about 7 years. Goodness. So, but in a way it helped me not overthink about the scripts and things like that. So yeah.
Wow. So the confession, I've always really been intrigued by adoption. I've always thought it's something that I'd love to do. I would, if I can, like to have my own child, like a biological child. But I've always thought, my God, like adopting is, I imagine, it's so rewarding for you and for the other person if you find the right match, the right fit. How have you found that journey?
It's interesting. So I'll go back a little bit. When I was at primary school, I remember a teacher asking in the class, who wants to have children when they grow up? And everyone put their hands up except for me. And she said, don't you? I said, I do, but I want to adopt. So even as a kid, I'd wanted to adopt. Yeah. And then when I met my husband, he'd had testicular cancer and had had an orchidectomy. And on our first date, he said, I can't give you babies. And I was like, that's amazing, because we can adopt. So it was serendipitous that we found each other. And then we started the process and realised we were quite an unusual couple, coming to adoption as a first resort as opposed to a last resort. And I think because of that, we weren't kind of obsessed with having a baby. Also, by the way, anyone who says to you, get a baby, you know, they won't remember things, they'll be less affected. It ain't true. Those kids can be affected in utero for those 9 months if there's alcohol, violence, anything like that. So we thought, well, we're in a unique position here. We can adopt a slightly older child. So our son was 3 when he came to us, which is old, according to adoption. And it felt wonderful to be able to do that because we weren't, you know, I wanted to be a parent, but I didn't need to have a baby.
Yeah.
So he's had, because he was a bit older, he did have a lot of memories, and it has been a really tough ride, but he's also had to deal with things at this end of his life. He's 12 next week. So we've already been through huge amounts of therapy and help and various things that will set him up in a wonderful way, hopefully, for teen years and adulthood. So being forced to deal with those problems earlier, I actually think was a benefit. But it is hard. It is hard, I'm not going to lie.
It's funny you should mention that. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about her adoption journey.
Yeah.
So she's also wanting to adopt, and it was also her first choice. And she accidentally got pregnant.
Oh my God!
She was so angry with her husband. Because she said, you know, we've been going through this, we decided we're going to do this.
It's
now,
not uncommon.
It's
not uncommon. I think maybe it's to do with just letting go of, for people who've been trying.
Yeah.
Just relaxing and letting go, and then suddenly.
But she had also wanted it from when we were young. She was a school friend. And it genuinely was in the same way as you. It wasn't her first choice. It was something she was always wanting to do. Yeah. And she not lamented, it does not lament. She's a beautiful daughter and she's very happy. But it was a surprise to have her own biological baby. And she wants to adopt. And she's now that her daughter is a little bit older, she's back on that journey.
Yay! I think if people could think about it as like I say, not a last resort, but say you have a birth child, if you then have room in your life for another child, why not make it an adopted child?
Yeah. So you had started on this project to make the movie, in effect. And then you had a very significant moment in your personal life, growing your family, and creating a loving, safe environment for a child to flourish in. And then what happened with the screenplay? So what kind of just start thinking about it again?
Oh, the point, well, things were moving in a positive direction and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So many other people with the same story. Yeah. And it all fell apart again. But then there was a COVID can at which my producer met with, I won't talk about details, but a company from another country who read it and absolutely loved it. And they were like, yeah, we're on board. So then it was a lot simpler to move forward and get the third chunk of money. And now we're flirting with directors, which in itself has taken like a year. Wow. It's just, I've learned a lot. There's so much that goes into it that I hadn't really anticipated. And it takes so long. But hopefully that's encouraging to other people who are like, I would love to do this. Just don't be discouraged if it takes many, many years.
Yeah. And can I ask about the money side? So you've got these producers. Do they see this as an investment or an art project or a mix of both? And the investors who are putting the money behind the movie?
Yeah, do you know what? I don't know.
Personal, like, it tends to be very personal from what I've heard.
I don't know. That my producer would know. But as the humble writer, I haven't really been part of those conversations.
And do you have to give the baby away? So you've written it now. Do they get...
Yes. My lovely producer said she wanted to hopefully fight for me to get an exec credit so that I can still have some input.
Yes.
And obviously I wrote a part for myself in it. But it's taken so long, I don't know if I can still play that part. So I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We'll wait and see. We'll see.
And so with the second, so you that was like, it sounds like a labor of love. The second screenplay.
Oh my God. It was like an illness.
What happened?
It was like a fever. I had this idea that I wanted to write. I quite like setting myself challenges. So I thought, okay, there's, a financial crisis. Let's say, how can I write a whole feature that is really, really affordable to make? And I was like, okay, so it's got to be one or two people in one location.
Right.
I was like, what do I do within those parameters? And I started to think about it, and it came to me, again, like an illness. It was like I suddenly had a fever. I was like, oh my God, it's going to be one woman and one AI in one flat over the course of one day. And it's...
Wow.
Yes. I was like, oh, that's really affordable to make. But then once I spiraled into that world, I was like, well, why would this woman be in this flat? And I was like, because she hasn't left it in 20 years. Well, why hasn't she left it in 20 years? And then it went down a very dark route, which all my work does, down the coercive control and domestic abuse route. And it became this kind of, I don't know, I'd describe it as a cross between Moon, Room, and Thelma and Louise. It is a very dark comedy about a very serious subject. but it felt like my brain was on fire. So I thought about it every day for a week on my dog walks, not while I was working. And then I plotted it within an inch of its life, and I wrote it in 3 days. But that was only the first draft, to be fair.
The vomit draft.
Yeah, the vomit draft. I've never experienced that before. It was like my brain was on fire.
So you are a plotter?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, yeah. In fact, I've just started writing something new this morning that kind of defies my being able to plot it to within an inch of its life, and I don't like it. I feel very vulnerable.
Let's talk about that.
So it's a new audio drama. But again, it's one woman in one location, so it's kind of a talking head.
Yeah.
So there is action, but there's less action. It's more a kind of rumination on solitude and a bit on grief, but with a comedy horror aspect, because that's my genre. So I'm just having to kind of trust myself to do a bit of a vomit draft.
Yeah.
And then go back and work out exactly what works and what doesn't. I mean, there's still a kind of basic 3-act structure, and I still understand exactly what the arc is, the beginning, the end, what I'm trying to do with it. But normally I would be like, oh my God, then this beat, then this beat, then this beat, so that when you write it, it's just fun. But yeah, so I'm a bit scared about that.
So what about that makes you feel vulnerable? Is it the idea that you don't quite, although you have the outlines, you're not quite sure what your mind is going to throw up?
Yeah, and it feels very personal. It's very much about mental health.
Right.
And there's a through line on depression, which I've suffered with my whole life.
Wow.
And so that feels quite vulnerable. Sure. Yeah. So, but again, this is why I say the writing is the non-negotiable, because I write stuff to keep myself sane.
Yeah. I've really ever felt that I'm a terrible, terrible, terrible piano player. Really, I mean, appalling.
You have a piano here.
It's like an electric keyboard. I've had it for the best part of 15 years, the same one, exactly the same one. But sometimes just if I've had a very difficult week, or not even, if I feel like my time is not my own, that's when I struggle.
Yeah.
And I will want to throw up over the piano. But I want to express so badly, and actually terribly, as in badly technically, but also having the need to express that I will just go and do whatever and play until my heart's content. And it feels like something is literally flowing out of your body and through your fingers.
Yeah.
And onto the keys.
Yeah.
And that's a process of expulsion.
Yes.
And it sounds like that you get that with your writing.
Yeah.
You're
expelling. Absolutely. I've also found over the years, people often say to me, I don't understand how you can write such dark things, Imogen. You're so happy. I was like, well, yeah, I'm happy because I can then go and write this deeply macabre story with like murder and blood and guts and political social satire that allows me to deal with that side of myself and put it out into the world as my dark Jungian dark side.
I think we all have that side of ourselves. And I just wonder whether we all feel the same degree of trust in ourselves and comfort in ourselves to explore it. Because I'm sure I would think, I don't want to go there because I don't know if I could come back. Yeah. You can go there and you know you can come back. Yeah. And there's something really powerful about that.
It took a long time though, I think. I mean, I first started writing really when I was first diagnosed with severe depression. And it was a way just to try and process that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I was already in it.
Yeah.
I was so deeply in it, it was me trying to get out. So maybe that's why the first time I did it was as a means to get out, as opposed to being in a happy place and going down there and coming back out. Does that make any sense?
Totally. Yeah. It was a life raft.
Yeah. Makes
Makes total sense. And so now with the second story,
love it so much.
Where's it going?
So it's been...
You wrote it in 3 days.
I wrote it in 3 days.
And what did you then do?
Well, I sent it with no expectations to a director friend in LA who is sometimes one of my very few readers. So it's really important to have trusted readers. Not many, just a couple. People who you know if you send them your work, they will come back and give you honest, constructive notes. Mm-hmm. You've got to be really careful if you work in the arts because there are a lot of people who just love the sound of their own voice.
Yeah.
And they will come back with notes just to hear themselves make points to you. Yeah. So it takes a while to work out who your readers are. Anyway, she is one of my readers, and I sent it to her just expecting she might read it and go, oh, this is good, or have you thought about doing this, or maybe doing that? And she came back and said, can I have it? Can I have it, please? I want it. Can we make it, please? And her husband is her DP. So, director of photography. Oh, okay. So they're like this amazing little duo. They made this fantastic documentary about Turkish street cats called Kedi. It's beautiful. But she was like, this is what I want my fiction film to be. Wow. So yeah, so we then worked together and did some redrafts and stuff. So while I say, I vomited it in 3 days, obviously that wasn't the final draft.
Yeah.
But yeah, she just fell in love with it and wanted it straight off. So we're just trying to work out whether to push for a bigger budget and get a name to play the woman, or to go a bit more guerrilla and I'll play the woman and we'll just run away somewhere and make it, indie, low budget style. So we'll see. If you want to get more money in and you want to get, a name in to play this woman, you then have to jump through a load of hoops. Sure. That's why I say there are 2 options. Mm-hmm. There's a financing route that we know is 100% there. Yeah. That means we could make it guerrilla indie style and it would still be great. Or do you look at a chance to elevate it and get it to a wider audience by having more money and having a name in the role? Mm-hmm. But then there's an offset.
Yeah, of course there is.
There's always an offset. If they want to wade in and change it, that's a no.
Yeah. It's too personal. This one's too personal.
Yeah. If they want to wade in and say, well, yes, but it's got to be directed by someone else. Personally, I think that's a no, because I would love her. I want her to direct it. So there's all these swings and roundabouts.
Because you've got these two stories, and they've taken different. They've just taken such different trajectories.
Yeah,
it's the opposite. They contrast so beautifully.
And they are very different as well. Actually, they are very different. But I have a trilogy. I have 3 horror comedies. So there's another one waiting in the wings. If the first one actually gets made, there's another one waiting in the wings. And there's a third one that I wrote that I think is completely unfilmable. So I turned it into a 1-woman full cast audio drama, which is available now on Zigzag. Because it's about a bunch of foster kids who get adopted by a wellness influencer who turns out not to be a great person. And it's a bunch of kids just kicking the shit out of wellness gurus and their acolytes. And they're not, I was like, there's no way you can film this on a boat in the ocean.
Wow, that sounds like hilarious. It sounds a bit Triangle of Sadness-y.
Yeah, but like really violent, involving children. Dear. That's why I say it's not filmable.
Oh, right.
But my next port of call for it, I mean, how are you going to get, unless you have a huge budget, how are you going to get, a cast of, what is it? Hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 kids under 18 who are all going to be able to act in a horror film saying C words, F words, S words, all the words, and murdering people to save their own lives. I don't think it's doable. Hence the audio version. And my next port of call is I'm hoping to find someone to work with to turn it into a graphic novel, because I think that's a great format.
And is your audience to that the kids? Or
so my audience.
I mean, obviously not underage kids watching.
Yeah.
Is it, who's your
I would love it to be, the reason it's on Zigzag is it's a really accessible audio platform, UK audio platform, B Corp certified, so really ethical as well. But there's no subscription barrier.
Right.
And I wanted to keep it affordable, so it's $3.99. Whereas a lot of the other platforms, it would cost more, and because I want people who have experience in care to be able to afford it. I want people who know anyone who have experience of care to be able to afford it. And then I just want people to be able to enjoy it because it's outrageous and rude and silly.
It sounds like it could be quite fun.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't want to put people off.
It doesn't take itself too seriously.
Oh, nothing I write does.
I'm thinking, what is the Japanese one with the kids on
Battle
the
Royale.
Battle Royale.
Oh my God.
It sounds a bit Battle Royale and...
Yeah, actually, there is an element of that to it. Yeah. I mean, they managed to get some very young-looking people, but one of them's a girl who's 9 and she says the C word all the time.
It's a beautiful word.
I love it. I just wasn't aware how au fait your viewers might be with it.
No, that's true.
So this is what goes on inside my head. This is what goes on inside my head. Now you see why I have to write to stay sane.
No, it's wonderful. So what motivates you, apart from staying sane?
I mean, going back to the reason for choosing this mad career anyway was quite simply the desire to do a fun job, to do something I love, not to be stuck behind a desk for the rest of my life, to do something that I've been a consumer of all my life and that has brought me such joy, films, books, because I narrate hundreds of audiobooks. I grew up listening to those and I loved them. And I wanted to be part of that world that could give people that escapism and that joy. So that was the original motivation, really. And moving on, I think it's just a way to, give people some joy in their lives as at the same time as processing, as you grow older, the unrelenting... shit of modern life.
And AI.
And AI, yeah.
Household
Although actually, weirdly, and this surprised me, the film script with the AI is a very positive factor in it.
Oh, yeah?
Which I hadn't expected to do, because people who work in audio are not keen on AI coming. I don't want AI to be narrating all my audiobooks.
No, but in that context, in the script you wrote.
Yeah, it's different. It's set in a slightly alternate near future, so it's a different kettle of fish.
It's a bit dystopian.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. So, before you were talking about the AI, my mind went to. You spoke about the importance of giving people. You didn't use that word, but a bit of light in the madness of the modern world.
Yeah.
What is it that ails you about the modern world? Big two thing.
Populism.
Uh-huh.
And regression. You said I could only pick two things.
Yes, I did.
Or maybe they're too close. I don't know.
Because you see populism as regression, as a political regression. But I feel you mean something else with regression. It feels a bit bigger.
Yeah, I think... I mean, I live in a relative bubble of people who want change in a positive way.
Yeah.
To bring everybody in together to be all part of the same experience of life. And then I'm reminded, particularly over the last however many years, that there are still people who believe that life is a meritocracy.
Yeah.
Who believe that if you're sleeping on the street, you've chosen that, or you're lazy.
Yeah.
There are still actually a frightening number of people who believe that.
Yeah.
And it feels like I don't understand how you can live in the world, exist in the world, and still believe that people, that if somebody is struggling to get by financially, that's their fault. Yeah. Nothing to do with structural racism or sexism or classism at all. Couldn't be that.
Or even just personal advantage.
Yeah, I think people are so blind to that. Yeah. A natural ability.
Yeah.
I think the script about the foster kids being adopted by the wellness influencer, it's called Boop. My drive for writing that was quite a deep rage.
Yeah.
Over the years, it's just gobsmacked me how prejudiced people can be against kids from care.
Yeah.
And when I first started along the adoption process, I mean, it wasn't everyone, but just the fact that it was a small number of people who would say things like, "Oh, don't know what you're going to get."
Oh, yeah. As though you do, even if you were...
Like, someone actually said to me, "But you've got such good genes."
Oh, wow. Yay.
I was like, do you want to hand back the eugenics? Just leave it over there. But what they meant was, "Oh, why are you adopting? Oh, a child from a chaotic background. I don't like that." Yeah. And when he started school, he's got special needs from the trauma he endured. And there were so many wonderful, understanding people. But when he was not behaving well, there were parents who just wanted him kicked out. Just didn't want him in school, didn't think their kid should have to be educated alongside him.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. So, and people close to me as well. There's been some, I won't go into it, but some really traumatic in their own way for me experiences of prejudice. I was like, I need to write about this.
The problem is that it's not just that they're being unkind or unfeeling, not thinking. It's that they are reflecting something that is deeper and originalist and reminds you how far we have to move the society and the fact that not everyone feels that we are all these kids on that ship together. That is who we are.
Yeah.
Some people still think they're maybe apart from that, aside from that. And I suppose wealth or certain privileges might give you the ability to distance yourself, but you're still part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how are you going to behave in that?
Yeah, and to be able to write people off and say, well, I just don't want them near me. Yeah. As though people who've done jail time or people, raised from care or chaotic backgrounds, as though those people aren't going to be your neighbours and your co-workers and your kids' partners. I think that's what I mean by I want us to move forward and all be in it together.
Yeah.
And then, I'm so regularly rudely awoken to the fact that there are still so many people who are saying, no, I'm fine over here and I did it all myself. And I wanted,
because I'm so special.
Yeah, because I'm chosen and wonderful, and if I can do it, they could have done it.
Yeah, sure.
So that's what I guess that's my biggest frustration.
So if you could donate all your money to charity, all of it, or you had to, maybe because you may not choose to do that, but if you had to donate all your money,
where would it be?
Where would it be? Where would it go?
Do you know what I think it would be? I think it would be early intervention with children.
Okay.
Because I've seen, and I'm still seeing, how many years and how much work it takes to undo even just the first couple of years of trauma. And it's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So as much as it's hard, if I could only pick one area, I think I would go straight to the early intervention. And help for families that are struggling, which actually local councils try their best to do. But my husband works for our local council, and the budget since I met him 12 years ago has been halved and halved and halved till there's almost no money left.
Yeah.
But those are the places, local government, the places that are actually trying to intervene, not immediately to remove kids, but to try and work with families to make their circumstances better so that it doesn't get to the place where police normally end up saying, do you know what, we're taking this kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where I would put my money.
Yeah. We're sitting here and you come across as a wonderfully confident, outgoing human being.
With amazing hair.
With amazing
Thanks
hair.
to Paradisefold.
But from what we've just discussed, going through depression and so on, it sounds like that even getting to that point was a journey. Can you tell me a little bit about?
Well, I'm not even there. It's not even done yet. Right. I mean, particularly as a writer, I mean, starting this new project this morning, I started it, and I still, all day yesterday, had this voice in my head going, who do you think you are? Why on earth would you think you can do this?
Wow.
I was like, oh, but, you know, I've had a book published and I've made this drama and I've had 2 scripts picked up. Yeah, and? So it's still in there. And it's a lifelong thing. And I don't know if it's a kind of... an
event or a transformation.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if there's a history of depression in my family on my mum's side, so I don't know if I'm just battling chemistry or if it's a combination of chemistry and also being raised a woman, a girl, and there's a whole aspect of that which says, don't be above yourself, you know, be careful what you think you deserve or what you think you can do. So I don't mean that to sound depressing that it's still a work in progress, but I have come a huge way and I have had a lot of therapy of different kinds and I've been on medication for a long time, which does help. I know it helps because every time I come off it, it's not pretty. Yeah. And my doctor eventually said the gaps between going on antidepressants, coming off them and going back on just get smaller and smaller. He was like, you're probably just serotonin deficient as part of that.
Yeah.
Just stay on them.
Yeah. And that helps you regulate.
Yeah.
And it gives you kind of a better baseline for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very hard because I totally understand why people may not want to be on. And there's a stigma, I think, also to going on antidepressants, but it's also just important to... I feel very lucky that in the UK we have a medical system that does not incentivize over prescription when you need to. I know it's not perfect when, you know, I tend to trust.
Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think confidence is a journey, but it's interesting to hear your point about how much of that do you just kind of put down to environment versus chemistry, and it most certainly is both. And then you just have to go with that flow and make it work for you and battle those demons. Yeah,
and you know, I suppose in some ways I've turned those demons into an entire career.
Yeah.
So we'll take the positives of that.
Yeah. And acting makes a lot of sense in that context as well, because you get to step out of your own shoes.
Oh my God, yeah.
At least for a little while.
Yeah.
When you feel like you feel like you really need it.
Yeah.
And step into someone else's life and their own shoes.
Yeah. I mean, so acting is wonderful and so much fun. But one of the main tenets of being an actor is having to have headshots taken.
Yeah.
I can act till the cows come home. But if I have to sit for a headshot when it's just me, oh my God, terrifies me. Absolutely terrifies me. I hate it. Most of my headshots are kind of...
That's interesting.
She's kind of smiling, but you can see the terror in her eyes.
It is funny that you are an actor and that you read audiobooks, because you just reminded me that with your tutorial, the one that you really kindly filmed for us.
Oh yes,
yeah. And everyone who comments on that is like, "Oh my God, her voice! I love her voice. She's amazing." It makes simple sense, but yeah, it just so happens that she actually does this for a living. But I promise, she's like an ordinary woman.
Oh
Who's an ordinary project. It is really cool. It's so funny.
And I promise everyone, she did not tell me to say this, but it has changed my hair life.
Yay!
The number of people who sometimes just come up to me or online when I'm posting videos and stuff will be like, how do you get your curls so amazing?
Nice.
And I'll be like, well, I think you'll find.
That's great. That's great to hear. That's very sweet. Thank you. Well, guys, you know what to do now. You've been watching this. Paradisefold.com. But on a more serious note to end on, you have been through a lot. Like, my God, and you are doing a lot, and you're leaning into both the strengths and the vulnerabilities within you. And if you wanted to advise someone who's thinking of taking a punt on themselves, starting a new project, doing an acting course, writing, what would you say to them?
I'd say make sure your motivation is the right one, because that's what will keep you going. If your motivation is to get money and be famous, I think you'll always be chasing something that's never truly going to come. Because even if you hit that point, say you wrote a novel and it was a huge hit and that's wonderful, well, then you have to write another one. And then it becomes, oh, she only had one novel in her, blah, blah, blah. It's a never, you can't ever tame the beast of
Desire.
Yeah. Exactly. But if what your motivation is the work, then you're always going to win. Because even if you're making a new project or writing a novel, even if you don't find a publisher and you publish it, you know, if you self-publish it, I've narrated books for people who self-publish because no one would pick their books up, and they've become massive bestsellers and gone on to pay all their bills with writing for decades and end up with a publisher. But the key is you've got to love the project. If you love the project, it will carry you through all the dark times. If you just want to be famous or rich, maybe take a look at that and work out why. There might be some work to do there.
Yeah, fine. Thank you so much, Imogen.
It's been lovely.
Thank you for joining. This has been so much fun. And an utter surprise. Thank you for brightening up my day.
Oh, thank you. You too.